all day, trimming my fingernails and getting ready to go.
Yeah.
So the day is finally here. This has been in the planning stage for a good long while now, and then more recently, I had the good fortune of a change in a relationship, so to speak, with my auntie, because this really wasn't something that we talked about, but over time, the idea warmed up, and here we are. So we really want to bring you a dynamic show. We really want you engaged in the show.
Right.
Our call-in number here is 1-800-492-5186. Hope you'll put that in your phone and give us a call. Also on YouTube, or especially on Facebook, jump in the chat, like the show, add your notifications for the show so you can get advised and so forth, and we'll get rolling. And our plan out of the gate is just to do a trial for a couple of weeks and see a trial run and just see see what you think and see how we're feeling about things. And but we're really, really excited. Mississippi is Mississippi is a unique place. And, when we think about this backdrop that you see behind us, this sizzling in Mississippi, Mississippi is still burning. I know nobody likes to say it that way, but that's the truth. There's just so much pain and hurt going on down here. Backwardness is a term that you hear from time to time. And we're just going to try to shed light on things. And our ultimate goal really is to try to come together from this place of, and we've coming up on a year, I would say, Joan, and just come from a place of respect and for one another, and a common goal of just doing our little part to try to move this needle in this state, try to move this needle more towards fairness and equality and equity. There's so much room for that needle to move, and so we want to try and do our part. So, Monty, how about a introduction? We let the listeners get to know us a little bit.
Okay, all right. My name is Ma'ati Joan Prim, and I am owner and operator of America's oldest black-owned bookstore, and that is Marshall's Music and Bookstore, always located on Ferris Street, as part of the Ferris Street district that most Mississippians know as a historically black district, both residential and commercial. And we have been there over 84 years now, and plan to keep going. Got to make it to 100 because 99 won't do.
Got to make it to 100.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have too much farther to go.
And down here, nobody can say a word in Mississippi. If you're not from here, nobody can say a word in Mississippi before the question is, where are you from? Because you know how that goes, right?
Right.
Everybody got to make that determination.
Yes.
Because sometimes, if the answer, doesn't come in right, you might get looked at in a certain way.
Right. But I mean, I get that a lot. They're like, well, you don't sound like you're from Mississippi.
Yeah. Well, if you don't, I definitely don't.
Right.
Yeah. And so, very good. Very
We're
good.
transplants.
We are both transplants.
Yes.
You for how many years now?
16.
16 years. Wow. And just, I guess, 19 months for me.
Wow.
And again, 19 months, I had a chance to retire a bit early. An intentional plan that I'd worked on for about 5 years to get ready so that I could take an early exit. And, as long as I don't live extravagantly and so forth, and, I get to do just fine. But my goal was to come down here and try to contribute, try to make a change, and try to help with the change process going on. So really, that's why I came here. And every day, I'm grateful that I did come here. I have a family in different parts of the country, but certainly I have a little grandson up in my daughter and my grandson up in Virginia Beach area, Norfolk, Virginia Beach area, which is where I lived for the last 35 years before coming down here. And had the good fortune of spending, I got a nudge from the judge when I was maybe 18 years old and got a chance to avoid doing some time in the county farm for being a knucklehead, and join the military. Had no idea that I'd end up spending 20 years in the military, but that's what happened. 20 years in the Navy, 4 different ships, 40 different countries visited while I was in the Navy. Kind of amazing. Flunked out of college, but then I had a chance to, by the time I retired from the military, I had a master's degree. So I don't know how that stuff happens, but I just consider myself really, really fortunate. And so now here down in Mississippi, and just trying to move that needle. So that's kind of the deal with me. And I got affiliated with these We Believe digital studios by meeting the founder, a really remarkable, significant man named Socrates Garrett, who's a longtime Jackson, Mississippi businessman, born and raised in Mississippi. And this studio is just one of his many ventures. So we're coming to you from an African-American studio right in the heart of 85% African-American city, and just trying to bring you the show. So what do you think? Did I get enough out there?
I think so. I think we got your autobiography.
Well, you know how us people, we don't mind talking a little bit.
Oh, okay. Right. That's how we met.
Yeah, that is how we met.
Right.
That is how we met. And I have to put in a plug, too, for Mati's store. Trying to get those S's there, but her bookstore is just phenomenal. It's like when you walk in there, it's like a walk into civil rights history. It's also a walk into Mississippi's notables. The walls are covered with photographs of African Americans who have gone before the trailblazers, Aaron Henry, Vernon Damer, Oprah is on the wall, Cassandra Wilson, one of the finest voices to ever touch our ears, is a Jackson native. The list just goes on, and it's just a treat, and she has every kind of Black history and African American centric type books that you could think of, and all sorts of other items. And she also has just churches come in. I watch when I go down to visit her. The churches come in from all around. I don't know from how far away, but
all around the state.
All around the state to order their religious books and their hymnals and their
Sunday school literature and communion. Yes.
Yeah, and even the wafers, right? You sell the wafers.
We do.
And it's just so much going on under one roof, and she handles that effortlessly. And I've been down there so many times now. And it's just a joy. So if somehow or another you're in Jackson or you're coming to Jackson and you haven't been to Marshall's Books on Fair Street, directly maybe about 2/3 of the way up Fair Street from downtown,
right,
across from the Fair Street Baptist Church,
right,
and please treat yourself to that.
Well, thank you. But we on the wall, it's not just people in America. Mm-hmm. It is Africans from all over the world. Mm-hmm. Very historical people. A lot of people that people didn't even know were African. People like Alexander Pushkin, Alexander Dumas, the writer of the Three Musketeers, Beethoven. I've had a lot of people come in and go, well, why is Beethoven on the wall? And I said, because he's black.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I have people come from all over the world, and usually when they do, I've started asking them for coins.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a world coin collection going.
Nice.
But people come from China, Portugal, Hungary, Germany, you name it. Yeah.
On a trek of some sort.
Yes. In fact, I had a Maasai warrior come to my store. And it was just wonderful. We kept in touch.
I don't know what a Maasai warrior is.
Oh, the Maasai people of Kenya.
Okay.
And they're beautiful. In fact, he looks so much like my father, I could barely let him go.
Wow.
Yeah, and usually they're very tall and thin and wear a lot of red and a lot of beading. And you'll see some pieces that they've actually made for me in the coming episodes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so it's just been wonderful.
Amazing. And the other thing, too, about this Ferris Street in Jackson, could we say 50 years ago, absolutely thriving?
Yes, even then.
Even then.
Yes.
And now, I don't know.
We're on our way back, actually.
On our way back.
We're actually on our way back. We've had our lesser times, and now we're on our way back.
It's good
Businesses
news.
are coming back in, and there's more traffic on Fair Street than it's been in years, and so it's a wonderful thing.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Today is World AIDS Day, December 1st. 34 years in running now, World AIDS Day, and I just heard the president mention that this morning when he was welcoming the French president to the White House for a state visit, and that the goal now, like for eradication, I believe he said was 2030. So 34 years in.
Yes.
And supposedly another 8 to go if we're going to meet the goal.
Yes. But now it's no longer a death sentence.
Now it's no longer a death sentence.
Right.
And now, many, many times, people test positive, and the transmissions are just so different than they were before, and so you can't buy into these stereotypes, and you can't just assume that, if it is absolutely no longer locked in as a male-on-male, spreading.
Right.
And so we've got to open our eyes about that sort of thing.
Right.
So
and Mississippi's been hit so hard with HIV and AIDS that, I'm so glad that there's treatments now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so World AIDS Day, and I got a little quiz for our listeners. And again, we do have a call-in line, 1-800-492-5186. And of course, the chat lines are open, and we're waiting to see some comments. But I got a little quiz for the listeners because something really, really significant happened in 1955. So we'll do the math on that and come out to 67 years ago today. Mm-hmm. Somebody refused to do something. Yes. So we'd love to hear from you and fill us in on exactly what that was. Got somebody texting in. Oh, that's that Ariel texting in, loving the show. So what was it that happened 67 years ago today? Let us know. Enormous component of civil rights history. And I also noticed today on Twitter, I believe it was, that this is the anniversary of or the birthday of Shirley Chisholm.
Is that right?
Is that now she's been gone now since 2005, but the very first African American female elected to Congress.
I met her.
Wow.
Yeah, as a child. She was formerly an elementary school teacher. Mm-hmm. And when she was running for president, we ran out to the airport, which you could do back then, and go right up to the gate, and she came out. and she sat and she talked with me and just shared the way that a teacher would share.
Wow.
Because I think education was her key strength.
Yeah.
She was a politician, but her approach to it wasn't, the typical politicking.
Right.
But she had a big heart, and it was inspiring to be around people
I can
like
imagine.
her. Yeah. I met her as a child. I met Angela Davis as a child.
No.
So, yeah, Roy Wilkins.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, quite a few people.
Yeah, they're good.
I did.
And
Great childhood.
Another piece of advancement. Was it yesterday? I guess today's the first day since Hakeem Jeffries was voted. So now, this is the very first African American leader of a major party inside the Congress. So he's going to be taking the gavel. I don't know if that happens now or in January, maybe when the new term starts.
Right, when they come back.
But they had the voting and everything, and Hakeem, congressman from New York, many years on the job, speaks truth to power, gets people to think about things that they're not typically used to thinking about.
Right.
Is just a steadfast. He does, no shrinking violet.
No.
In him.
No.
So he'll have the gavel as the speaker in the House. Amazing.
Yeah. I think that he was part of the hearing that they had in New York regarding Emmett Till's tragic murder.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
We never really had anything here substantial or fair when it came to Emmett Till. But in New York, back in the early 2000s, they actually did.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So he was in on that.
He was.
I guess he's among the next generation because you have and a generation before him, Jesse Jackson and Reverend Al and so I guess he's one of the next soldiers.
Yes. Yeah, we'll see how well he does.
Good stuff. Yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that.
Right.
So we're just kind of hey, we got a winner already. Carolyn. Carolyn's answered the question. It was Rosa Parks, 67 years ago today.
Yes.
She said, "I will not give up my seat on the bus," which ultimately led to the whole Montgomery bus boycott.
Right.
A critical piece that lunged the civil rights movement forward.
Right. There is another story about that particular act and the Montgomery Improvement Association's boycott that people don't know. Mm. And what it is that, it was a little over a year that the bus boycott took place. And then there was a federal court case that brought that to an end, and it was a victory. But the victory was, unfortunately, very short-lived. Mm. And people don't know this. Another Rosa, Miss Rosa Jordan, was riding a bus after the buses had been desegregated. And what happened was there was a backlash, which always happens.
Of course.
Well, she was 8 months pregnant, and there was a sniper who fired into the buses. Typically, they were missing people, but they didn't miss her this particular day. And she was shot twice in her legs. And they rushed her to the hospital, and they told her that they could not remove the bullets because of her pregnancy condition, being that she was so close to delivery, being in her 8th month, and that she would have to remain still in the hospital until she delivered her baby, and then at that point they would be able to remove the bullets. Well, what happened was when she was shot, which was about January the 10th, so you understand how short-lived this victory was. Black people returned to the back of the bus. They don't. Nobody talks about this, but it's
Right.
something you can look up and see. Rosa Jordan. Yes.
Look at this. Look at these likes going on over here, Joan.
Wonderful.
Good stuff. So we're coming up on a break now, and when we come back, we're going to try and focus in on sharing with folks, what we've some statistics about our wonderful state of Mississippi, and then hopefully in our final segment, and I don't know, Madam Producer, if we've come up with a name for this or if this is going to be a hot topic or whatever, but we've got a topic we want to share with you on that's very important to us, and it's this postpartum care for mothers in Mississippi. Yes. So hang in there with us. We got a couple of commercials coming, and we'll be right back with you.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, Keepers of the Knowledge for People Who Speak the Truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Let's read and learn together. Meet Mason. Written by Sherry Tate, illustrated by David. Mason is a young, inspired learner. Walk with him as he uses his 5 senses to explore the world around him. Your young one can learn to identify shapes, numbers, letters, and more with Meet Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
And welcome back to the We Believe Digital Studios and our brand new podcast show kicking off tonight, Sizzling in Mississippi, Black Woman and White Man at the Crossroads. We're just going to try and chop it up, and just keep things real here. And one of the things, and just wanted to share with the viewers, our voice, I don't even know if that's the right way to say that, but let's just say there's another voice that permeates this state, and it emanates through the Super Talk radio network, whatever you call it, but over 48 radio stations across the state, and sharing things every single day that just it's just such the other side of the aisle, I guess, is the kind way to say it, but maybe a less kind way to say it, kind of red meat. And of course, everybody's entitled to their politics, but politics here in Mississippi kill people every single day. And so that mindset is just so harmful to so many. And so when you ask yourself, well, is there anything out there to push back against that? Mm-hmm. And you have to look far and wide to try to find anything. And that's one of the reasons that this show exists now, is to be to try to in some way get a different voice out there. We want to hear your voice, yes. And we want to broadcast your voice. We want to hear what your thoughts are. We want to hear the real deal. It's interesting. I was talking to a lady that does a very popular podcast on this platform on Wednesday and Friday night, Chantel. I was talking to her earlier, and I was talking to her about this perspective with the new Capitol Police we have down here, like shoot 'em up cowboys and all. Yeah. But talking to Chantel, I got a very different perspective about that, and I didn't really need to go back and think things over. So, But that wouldn't happen if I wasn't seeking information from her. And so many people around here, they seem to know everything, and they don't want to converse. They don't want to dialogue. They don't want to know they couldn't care less what's going on inside of Marshall's bookstore.
Right.
But yet what's going on inside of Marshall's bookstore, for example, is just, is glorious. It's a wonderful, people just don't want to hear the other view.
It's kind of like a barbershop because people come in and talk about the latest topics.
Yeah.
Talk about things that are bothering them, talk about history,
Mm.
because just like we were talking about the Montgomery bus boycott, right, and Rosa Parks, well, what was her impetus for it? And it was Emmett Till.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. She was so hurt by what she saw, as many people were, and that was a great influence for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. To stand up.
My mind just flashed back to the newest Smithsonian that I visited twice, and I think God was really with me on the second time, especially. But seeing that exhibit, the Till exhibit, that's at the new Museum of African American History and Culture in D.C., it just. It's almost like you stop breathing almost. Right. It's so horrendous.
Yeah.
And I mentioned making a second trip there, and the second trip, the reason I say I think God was really with me, because I didn't realize I had my glasses in my lap, and when I got out of the car, I didn't hear them hit the ground, and I stepped on my glasses. So I really couldn't see in great detail. I need my glasses.
Okay.
And yet I had a timed ticket, and I wasn't going to give it up.
Yes.
And so I spent a lot of that second visit not as much looking at the exhibits, but watching the other people that were there.
And seeing their reactions.
Seeing their reactions.
Yeah.
And that was a really powerful. There it goes. Thank you, Chantel. Thank you, Jackie. That was a really good lesson for me.
I learned about Emmett Till through my family. And I had relatives, family members, who lived in Chicago at the time of Emmett Till's murder.
Yeah.
And they talked about the effect that it had, and that on the south side of Chicago, they had Emmett's funeral, they had the wake, and the wake was just, horrific, yet soul-stirring.
Yeah.
And they talk about how waiting in line to see Emmett Till's remains, and the feeling that they had, and how so many people just lost it. And they said about every few people would just faint at the sight of his body.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just searching. For the. Here it is. Ariel, is this Is there any way to focus in on that, or is that just too much of a stretch? Send it to the. I'll do that on the break. But talking about this, we have a new larger-than-life, 9-foot-tall Emmett Till statue in Greenwood, Mississippi, that was just unveiled a few weeks ago. I couldn't make it to the actual unveiling. I went up the day after, and there were still cars pulling up and unloading groups of people to come out, and maybe they didn't want all the fanfare from the previous day.
Yes.
But it's a stunning statue.
Yes.
With him with his hand to the brim of his hat, and in Greenwood, Mississippi. But and I say that, and yet also, if you didn't know the direction to look in when you're looking at that statue, if you didn't know the direction to look in, you wouldn't know about what I'm about to say. But if you do know where that's at in relation to the courthouse in Greenwood, Mississippi, really about a quarter of a mile to a half a mile from where the Emmett Till statue is, if you look really carefully, there's a very tall, and it's very skinny at the top, but that's a Confederate States statue.
Yeah.
And it's much taller, but it's been there for so long, of course, and so it's interesting. But now we have this vibrant bronze statue, larger than life.
Yes.
Not quite in the center of town, but not too far from the center of town either.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that it won't be vandalized the way that the Emmett Till memorial markers have been vandalized. I've been to Money several times, and I have been at the store. I've gone to Glendora. There's the Emmett Till Intrepid Museum there. Spoken with the mayor. The mayor has said on camera, so I'm not giving up secrets here, that his father was part of the people that went to take Emmett away. And they were forced to do so because J.W. Milan controlled Glendora. Glendora is a very small town. Even to this day, there's less than 300 people there. And when he said jump, they jumped and asked in midair, how much higher should I go?
Wow.
He controlled it with an iron fist. So they felt compelled that they had to do it. I don't know how they lived with themselves after that, because this is a story that has never gone away.
Never.
Yeah.
I hope it never does.
No, I hope so too. And even though Carolyn Bryant is still alive,
Yes.
she's barely alive.
Well into her 80s.
Well into her 80s. She doesn't look very strong, although that may be her pretending for the cameras. But she doesn't have, much longer to go. And even when she goes, the injustice will live on.
That's right.
Yeah. And, she may not die a condemned woman in terms of the courts, but she will in the hearts of people.
Very important.
Who care anything about fairness.
So important to
and
say
decency.
that. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really bizarre. Well, let's, we want to share with you, we've got some statistics that we want to share, but sometimes people know all about that. What about if I just asked you, Ma'ati, in terms of an open-ended question?
Sure.
What do you see as with your finger on the pulse
Yes.
of what's going on in Mississippi? How do we describe that? What goes on here? With race and education and politics and
racism. You know how they say that Mississippi is like the least healthiest state in the union?
That's right on my list here.
Yeah.
50th.
50th.
Yeah.
Well, racism is alive and kicking and healthy in Mississippi.
Parade out in the street every day.
Yeah, yeah. It's Hercules in Mississippi. Racism is as strong as it's ever been. It isn't 1963, but I remember Malcolm X saying that, racism is like a Detroit auto company in that they come out with the new model every year. And that's what they've done here.
And these codes.
Oh, yes. Well, even the fact that you talked about the statue in Greenwood, that's LaFleur County, right?
Not positive.
Okay, or Sumner.
I believe so.
Okay. Well, the thing about it is, all there's statues all around the state. And when George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, it called attention to the fact that there were these Confederate statues around the country.
Yeah.
But in Mississippi came out with an edict that said, we're not touching one Confederate statue.
Yeah.
And not one Confederate statue ever came down in what happened, in view of what happened to Floyd. So it really says it all. I remember when I first got here, I had a toothache, and I went to this dentist, and I'd never been to this area before. It was in Brandon, and in the middle of the street is this Confederate statue, and you have to drive around it. And I went and I came out of there and I said, I'm not going around this statue again.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get it together because we're not coming back to the dentist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, that reminds me, and kind of trying to speak about the chronic racism in so many areas of life here in Mississippi. It reminds me of a conversation that I had with as part of a newspaper article. I wanted to, I tried to interview the pastors from what I could see from population for the largest 5 churches in Jackson.
Okay.
And I did my research, and then sent emails to all 5, and only one of them, only one of them is. You want to shoot that on now? Yeah, let's go ahead. And we can look at that bronze statue of Emmett Till. That's in Greenwood, Mississippi, 9 feet tall. Thank you, producers, so much for doing that. And anyway, so only one of the 5 replied to me.
Okay. Now, when you said the 5 largest churches,
As far as numbers.
okay.
Yeah.
Regardless of race.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, white churches.
Okay.
White churches.
Okay.
Predominantly white churches.
Okay.
Yeah, so only one pastor responded to me, and that was Carrie Stockett at Galloway,
Okay.
right across the street from, the Capitol.
Yeah.
And of course, with me writing for the Mississippi Link newspaper, he told me when I got there, "Oh, you're not black." I said, "No, never have been." And he said, "Well, I just assumed, you're writing for a black newspaper." that you'd be black. Okay. So anyway, but things like that happen. But anyway, what he told me, and I asked him, Mati, I said, how can it be that Mississippi is considered the most church attending state in the country?
Right.
And yet there's blatant racism everywhere you look. How can that possibly be that we have so many Christians going to church, predominantly Christian state, far and away predominantly Christian state, and so much racism present? And let me just share with you what his answer was.
Sure.
He said, "Chris, Mississippi is made up of a whole bunch of unreconstructed Confederates who have drank the Kool-Aid of the lost cause mythology. And that's why you see what you see today." That was his answer. And I was grateful that he was as honest as he was with me, to share that perspective.
Sure.
I think there's a lot to that.
Yeah, I would agree. Galloway isn't any better, so. They're part and parcel of that answer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And right.
We had marched for the Scott sisters, 2 young ladies in Scott County whose last name is Scott, who were wrongfully convicted of armed robbery and of 2 men. These ladies they're not even 5 feet tall. One was 19 and one was 22 at the time, and of their conviction. And they were given consecutive double life sentences for robbery of less than $11. And so we were marching to the state capitol. Galloway is on the way.
Yeah.
And so, every once in a while you reach an intersection, you have to stop and make sure the coast is clear so that the marchers will be safe. And so we were standing there and we were still chanting. And this man runs out of Galloway and tells us to hush. Just shut up, because they're in Galloway having a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he actually came up to me.
That's all that mattered.
Yeah, right. He came up to me.
Oh, he came up to you.
Yeah, I had a megaphone, so that didn't work.
Yeah.
He didn't get exactly what he had asked for, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just and I remember not too long after I came down here, people always want to know when you're new here, where you came from, and I remember speaking to this one lady, white lady, I don't know, maybe close to my age, maybe a tad bit older, something like that, and she said, well, where did you come from? And I told her Norfolk, Virginia, and she said, well, where do you live? And where do I live? What do you mean? Well, where do you stay?
What part of the city? Okay.
Fishing. She's fishing.
Okay.
And I said, well, I stay in downtown Jackson. Where else would a newcomer, want to stay?
Yeah.
You know what she said?
What?
Oh, you live in Jafrica.
Yeah.
I said, what did you say? And she repeated it.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, I don't even know what to say to that.
Well, it's interesting. Where you may not know where that came from. That's something that teenagers in Rankin County came up with. And they thought that it would really insult black people in Jackson. But there's a segment of Jackson that loves it. And that's people who identify as African in Jackson. So we're like Jafricans. Yeah. We put it on T-shirts, so it didn't have the effect that they were hoping for.
Yeah.
We're like, well, good. Yeah, this is another It's just a post of Africa, so that's fine.
That is.
Yeah.
That
so
is
if
wild.
you want to call it Jafrica, call it Jafrica. We're proud Jafricans.
Proud Jafricans. Well, we're sneaking up on our second break here, and just a few of these statistics. In the off chance that you don't know this already, 50th, ranked 50th. Now we're talking about sources like U.S. News and World Report, people that do these rankings all the time, and annually kind of thing. But Pew Research, and so Mississippi has the dubious distinction of being 50th in healthcare.
Yes.
You want to read some of these along with me?
50th in fetal death rate. We have the highest.
Fetal death rate and infant death rate also.
Right. Yeah. Lowest life expectancy.
COVID death rate. That's another. Now to me that's a classic Mississippi right there, because you had a state health director, a white state health director. I'm sure, very competent person, but the COVID pandemic got deeply politicized in many places, but certainly in Mississippi.
Yeah.
We have over 13,000 COVID deaths in Mississippi.
Yes.
But after a while, I wrote this guy a letter when I still lived in Virginia, knowing I was coming here, saying, wow, I love your approach. You're doing a great job. Keep up the great work and everything. But once I got down here, I saw that he'd taken his foot off the gas.
Yeah.
And people die as a result.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
So we have the highest COVID death rate.
Right.
Certainly we have the highest poverty rate.
Yes.
We have the highest grocery tax.
Yes.
Of the 13 states that tax groceries, ours is the highest.
Yeah.
So,
most states don't tax newspapers, periodicals, and they tax it here.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Oh, yeah.
When I first came in, I was like, are you sure? Nobody taxes this because they want a knowledgeable populace. But not here. They want the citizens here unaware. And
yet we'll cancel the state income tax.
Right.
But we tax the hell out of, you got to have food.
Right.
So what does that do to the people on a fixed income with these, it's just awful.
It is.
But let's skip out and hear a couple more commercials, try to pay the bills a little bit, and we'll be right back.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection. giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Wedding, milestone anniversary, or corporate event, 5-Star Lodge is the rustic elegance you need for your event space. With hardwood and stunning chandeliers, this is just the beginning of the 5-star treatment. Our on-site venue manager will ensure all details exceed your expectations. We offer a luxurious bridal lounge, beautiful reception hall, cabins, and an outdoor pavilion on the water. Visit 5stareventlodge.com to get started on your most memorable experience.
And welcome back to We Believe Digital Studios and the new Sizzling in Mississippi show. Yeah. We're just trying to chop things up a little bit here and give you a few things that are on our mind about what's going on, the kind of the realities down here, and why we say that Mississippi is sizzling. And 50th also on the list.
Yeah.
50th also the Racial Equity Index. This is from a National Equity Atlas .com or something like that, and ranks this state as the absolute worst when it comes to racial equity.
Yeah.
So, and of course we have to remember too that we have the highest incarceration rate.
Yes.
And guess what the highest percentage? Now, almost 40% of the state is African American.
The way they count us.
But guess what the inmate population is?
What is that?
Well, it's a heck of a lot higher than 40%. Now, would that tell you anything?
Yeah, it does. But
it's
and
near
it tells
60%.
Yeah. Well, see, but that's all across the country that this is done. But when I go into prisons, and because I work on cases of wrongful convictions. And it's the white inmates have certain privileges that the black inmates don't. Yeah. And there's special punishments really for black inmates who pick on white inmates. They're not supposed to do that. It's a no-no. Well,
it's interesting when last year in Mississippi there was 1,031 per every 100,000 in population that were incarcerated.
Yes.
And you know that the overall United States of America is only 64% of that level. It's just bizarre.
But it's the recipe though. When you're 50th in education, you're 50th in health care,
poverty.
You're the poorest.
Yeah.
What is the way out of poverty?
That's right.
Education. It's normally education, But how can we get out of poverty if we're 50th in education? Right. How does that work?
Right.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't work well at all.
So it's a spiral. It's a vicious spiral.
We shared with you that we wanted to bring up the topic of extending coverage for postpartum moms in Mississippi.
Yes.
The underpinnings of this is just this simple, is that the state will not expand Medicaid. They want to attach the Obama name to it, call it Obamacare, and so we're not going to expand. And what happens this is a political decision, and roughly 400,000 of our residents here, and a large percentage of African Americans do not have any sorts of health coverage whatsoever.
Right.
But now we're talking about mothers, and now we're talking about new mothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the last 2 years in a row, now last year it was referred to as Mississippi Senate Bill 2033, and the Senate voted 46-5 to extend the coverage for mom from 2 months postpartum, where it gets cut off, out to 12 months. And the data all show that if you can do that, if you can get mom the health attention that she needs, the health resources that she needs in that first full year following birth, that so many fewer deaths.
Yeah. Yeah, the mortality rate goes down substantially.
Goes way down.
Yeah.
And so, and I just, I want to share, as we're knowing that the clock is ticking, but the horrible, if it's not just disgusting enough on its merits, but the idea that the federal government is going to pick up 90% of the tab, and this state refuses to open the door for that.
Right.
And the federal government's going to pick up the tab due to the American Rescue Fund and so forth. It's going to pick up the tab for up to 5 years.
Right.
Almost entirely pay the cost.
Right.
And the best numbers that I've been able to get to would show that 2 years ago, they're from either 2 or 3 years ago, it was considerably over 100 mothers. I want to say, I don't have it in front of me right this second, but I want to say it was 134 2 or 3 years ago, because now they've put a lock on all that data. They're not letting, keep everybody ignorant, like you said before.
Right.
Hide, run and hide, throw the rock and then go hide. But so what that means is 134 caskets.
Right.
Mothers in caskets because of political decisions. That right there, you can get a good sense of what it's like for African Americans and people of color in Mississippi. And I'll just share with you that the differences are for pregnancy-related mortality rates of black women and American Indian and Alaska Native women are over 2 and 3 times higher than that for white women. Yeah. So per 100,000 births, 41% of those are going to be complicated pregnancies for African Americans. 26% are going to be complicated for American Indian and Alaska Native women, compared to 13.7% for pale people.
Well, the problem is that it's actually racial.
Yeah.
And it's not income related. There's a problem around the country with pregnant black women receiving proper care, regardless of income. We have Serena Williams as a perfect example. She almost died when she was pregnant.
Right.
Because she wasn't listened to.
Yeah.
And they somehow think that black women don't need pain management services, that somehow black people are thick-skinned and just can take whatever manner of abuse there is, and we need care like anyone else. Anyone else.
Absolutely.
And it's not a question of education level this time. It's not a question of income. It is just straight racism.
That's it. Really, really sad. And I think directly to your point. Disparities in maternal and infant health persist even when controlling for other factors, for certain underlying social and economic factors, education and income. So just what you said, that's factored into.
Yes, it absolutely is. Yeah, it's adjusted.
And pointing to the roles of racism and discrimination, that's what drives the disparity. So here it is from the Pew Research Center, and the exact same, the exact same information from you on that.
Yeah.
So wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're starting to go on the final leg here of our first show, and we thank you so much for tuning in. We're getting off to a start here. We're gonna, kind of settle into our stools a little bit as we go along. I know I had some. I've done a lot of podcasting shows with Socrates Garrett in the past, but this is a whole new thing, and I just want it to go really well, and I want it to be helpful, to our audience, and something that our audience can really use and relate to, and create a community with us and engage and so forth. So I hope we can get that started. We'll be back again tomorrow night.
Yes, we will.
Tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. We're going to try to do this for 2 weeks, so 10 work days, regular work days, and we're just looking forward to that. And please let us know if you have comments. You can always text in, or you can send email to webelievedigitalplatforms@gmail.com if you have specific feedback or criticism or suggestions. We'd love to hear all that. We're totally open to all that. And of course, our call-in number during normal business hours, 1-800-492-5186. So the time is up. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We've been talking about it, and now we're kicking it off. And thank you so much for listening. Have a good evening out there, and stay safe.
Walking on the freedom land. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around. Turn me around. No, turn me around. Ain't gonna let injustice turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom land.